Hello everyone, thank you for joining my today's webinar. This is Feeder Master Viktor Neustroev. Please let me know how everything works. What about the sound and video quality? You can type in the chat. Today we have 100 attendees. Okay, perfect. So guys, today we are going to talk about how to self-study chess. So please let me know what is the average ELO rating of our attendees, because I just need to understand, should I explain everything in details or I should just try to show the basics and you'll understand. Okay, so yeah, here we have people from even 800 to 2000, which is quite good. Even newbies. Okay, fine. So first of all, 2200. Okay, first of all, so what can I say? I wrote a book that is devoted to how to self-study chess. There are 10 tips that help you to do this. What self-studying chess originally means? It means that you study chess on your own. Like you don't use the coach. So not everyone can afford a coach, so you just want to study chess, you want to get better, but you don't know how. And this is what this webinar is about. Of course, if you have the option to work with a coach, it's the best way. And this is what I highly recommend. For example, when I decided to become a FIDE master, so I was a candidate master with 2200, decided to become a FIDE master, so I should gain at least 100 points more, 23. 100 points FIDE ELO, and of course I could study myself, but I called my friend, the Grandmaster Dmitry Bocharov, and asked if he can give me a few lessons. Oh, actually, what means a few? We were studying once a week for 2 hours. Each lesson was 2 hours, and we were discussing only the problems that I needed to fix in my play. Oh, actually, I don't need headphones here. Fine. So I could reach 2300 without him, but it's much better and much faster to use the coach's help. Okay. So please look at the screen. I'm sure you all can see it. This is my book that every who registered for this webinar will get it. This book is devoted to how to study chess. So, and this is the content. So you'll find it, I think you'll find it very helpful and interesting. You can skip maybe the first one, know the rules. We can skip it now, but I kindly recommend you to read it. So number 2, train systematically. What it means? It means that you should study chess regularly. This is one thing. The other thing is that you should study chess according to a certain program. And in this program, there are only elements that you experience problems. So for example, here in the chat, Prasun, for example, told that his problem was a strategy. Yes, so if you need to understand the position and to find plans, then this is what you definitely should work on. But of course, you shouldn't forget about the other elements of your training program, such as puzzles, playing long games, analyzing them, and so on. Okay, guys, please let me know if the screen is working and you can see my book. Fine. Okay, by the way, for Russian speakers, I have the Russian version of this book. So number 3, use the possibilities of the internet. What I am talking about. You know, you can go to YouTube, you can watch any chess video that you think you really need. For example, like you play Sicilian defense, like Neidorf variation, you don't know how to play. You can just subscribe to YouTubers who analyze recent tournament games and find if there is a game that is played on in this exact variation. Then you just learn from them and try to apply this in games in your and to try to apply these ideas in your games. The best thing, I think, if you don't have enough money to hire a coach, or if you can't hire a coach for some other reason, you may attend my webinars, which are free. So every Sunday I conduct a webinar, and it's always better to participate in such events rather than watch them later, because if you participate by asking the questions, I force you to think, and this is how you're working. Okay. So what YouTube channels I recommend for learning? So it's difficult to answer these questions right now because I have some Russian YouTube chess players that I like, but I usually watch YouTube on Russian. I can recommend my YouTube channel. Of course, I will recommend my YouTube channel. Just wait a sec. So this is the link. No. On my YouTube channel, almost all videos are in English. Okay, fine. So, of course, you should use other important resources. Okay, let me show you. Now the screen, I changed the screen. Now I want to show you, first of all, this is my profile, and you can add me as a friend, because in such a case, you are likely to receive all my announcements. So this is my chess.com profile. There is also our educational group, Tricks of Chess, where from time to time I post interesting news. And this is where you can find the streams of our webinars. So you see live webinar 73, live webinar 72, and so on. So this is the link. I highly recommend you to join. I also conduct tournaments there. For example, this week we are playing round number 5. And later, when I announce another one, if you want to become a member, you should be inside this group, of course. Okay, and what else? My website that I also recommend you to visit at least several times. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to click on it. Okay, so what you can find here, my online courses, which are actually, yeah, they are paid courses, but actually the price is not so big, and you can choose what you need to improve. For example, if you're looking on tactics, then you should take a tactics course. You see, they are not so expensive. And also my blog, where you can find interesting and helpful material. For example, recently I published a post about how to stop blundering pieces in one move. Of course, like 15 and 16 and higher rated players don't blunder pieces in one move, but beginners blunder in almost every second move. So this is the exercise that you may learn and practice regularly to stop blundering pieces. So what else, for example? Some of my webinars are also published here. For example, there was a really good webinar devoted to endgame, which is called Endgame Fundamentals. You can watch it here. Also, you can go through the analysis of the games that were analyzed at this webinar. So, and finally, if you want, you can check out my the bundle of my chess courses, how to play endgame successfully. There are 4 courses about minor piece endgames, rook endgames, pawn endgames, and queen endgames. So you can find it there. So anyway, I'll provide you with the link to my blog, and then you'll decide what to do. So of course, I'm not the only author who provide you with educational content, but I do it mainly for free. Okay, let's get back to our book and continue. After I go through all the elements, we will be analyzing the games, and I'm going to demonstrate everything on practice. Okay, so use the possibilities of internet. This is what we were talking about, because now everyone can study chess. The only thing is needed is the internet. However, what do I usually see when people try to get better? They mainly, especially beginners, they mainly play blitz, and unfortunately, blitz doesn't help you to improve. Only in very rare cases it works. So that's why you'd better devote some time to solve chess puzzles. I have an article of how to solve chess puzzles properly, but you can also find it inside this book that you get after the webinar. And I also send an email for you on Monday with the recording of this webinar and also with this book. Let me show how to solve puzzles properly. Yeah, so some people do tons of puzzles, but are you sure that you are doing it properly? You should spend from 5 to 10 minutes, usually 5 in average, for one puzzle, and it should be well calculated before you make the move on the board. That's why I don't recommend solving puzzles on websites, for example, on chess.com or Lichess. No, I'm going to show the example, for example. Let's do it. Let's do it right now. So, for example, this is chess.com and puzzles. So let's choose puzzles. So this is my current rating. So rook g1 was played as the first move. No, I'm sure you can see. Okay. So what black should do? Let's decide. What do you think is the best move? So they offer a trade, and if we take, they capture. We can take on e5 with our queen. No, yeah, let me show with the arrows. Rook g1. Queen takes g1. Queen takes e5. They probably do king d2. We can do something like rook d6. King goes to c2. Queen goes there, check. He goes to b3. We check again with our rook. Looks like a winning position, actually. Is it the best move? What do you think? Maybe there is something better. What about playing this move immediately? No, it's not so good. Okay, so you see, I'm not calculating all the lines here, but I'm playing this move immediately. which was actually a right move. So in this position, what can I do? Okay, rook d6 looks like the best move. Then queen e2. This is a blunder because then I checkmate with rook b6. Yes. Okay, let me show another one. So this move was played on the board. What can I do? I can capture on d4. So I can capture on d4, and they have to take with the pawn. Then I check on e1 with my queen, and this is a winning position. Looks like they are too easy. So again, no, actually, I don't recommend any internet puzzles because, for example, you believe that this is the best move, and then you do it on the board without any calculation. No, here, the most obvious move was the best one. Then what to do in this position? So just anything, including knight a6, maybe. And then I capture on b1. Okay, so yeah, let me close it. For example, when I solve just a sec, let me show you. Okay, please look at this position. This puzzle is taken from the book, and this is how I recommend you. This is how I recommend you to work. You take this puzzle from the book. Doesn't really matter if you solve it in the book by like just visualizing the position without any movements, or if you want, you can set up the position on a physical board, but please don't make the moves on the board. Your task is to picture everything in your mind and be able to calculate the line properly. Another important thing about how to solve puzzles is that it's recommended to solve puzzles using different tactical motives, so that you understand what you are looking for in this position. Here, it's black to move. The topic is intermediate move. For example, something like bishop d4, it takes d4, queen d4 doesn't work because they take on c4 and the position is equal. Oh, you may say, I can check, and if he takes, I take the queen. Yes, but if he does king g2, then there is nothing black can take. That's why your task here inside this combination is to find an intermediate move, and then you start thinking, so what can I do to improve? What do you think, by the way? No, which move to play right now? It's black to move. Bishop d4, he takes d4, and queen f3. No, queen f3, then they just take on c4. Rook c1? What do you mean by saying rook c1? Rook c8, I see. Well, rook c8, you didn't gain anything. I can just play any rook d1, for example. Okay, fine. So here the answer is that you take on d4, it takes d4, and then you play rook e4 move. Why? Because you want to take on d4 with your rook and make the c4 pawn protected. Because when queen captures on c4 and your queen is already on d5, you can play rook e1 check. And this guy, I mean white, cannot play king to g2. This square is covered with your queen. They have to take. And this is how you distract the rook from the queen's protection and successfully take the queen. But before playing bishop d4 on the board, that I would definitely play if that was Chess.com or Lichess or like Chess Tempo or any other platform. I should analyze if bishop d4 really works. And for example, something like this move doesn't allow white to keep the material balance. Yeah, rook d1 doesn't work. In such a case, I can just sacrifice my rook on a3. If he doesn't take, he's down a piece. So he takes my rook. I take on a3 with a check. King can only move to f1. After that, I check with my queen on h1. King goes to e2. Then queen captures h2. King can't go to d1 or d3. They have to capture on e3, and this is how they lose the queen on c2. So this line doesn't work. I can show you because it's too complicated. Actually, yeah, as for the software, it's chess-based, but the book is taken. The puzzle is taken from the book. Yes, you can do the same thing on chess.com, but make sure that you do it and you don't play by intuition, which is likely to happen even with grandmasters. And of course, yes, from time to time, I also make moves by intuition. So bishop d4, no, rook d1, rook a3. This is just the line that I recently told you. So here, king e2 is the only move, queen h2, and you see the king can't move and at the same time protect on c2. They have to capture. Then black is with the queen versus rook absolutely winning. So another option here is to realize if something like queen d2 works after our bishop d4 move. So if queen d2, then I think we can play rook e4. So if he captures on d4, we can still capture with the rook and we are fine. If then he does rook d1, we play c3. So, and if queen goes to d3, we can just play queen f5. Because if pawn takes bishop, rook checks on e1, so the enemy rook can't capture our rook, otherwise the queen on d3 is hanging. But he can move the king. However, in such a case, we trade the queens and then promote our pawn to c2, no, advance to c2 with the idea to promote on the next move, supported by our rook standing on e1. Looks like a difficult position, so let me show you. Bishop d4, queen d2, rook e4, rook d1, c3. So queen d3 to keep the pin. No, otherwise, if he moves the queens anywhere else, we can just play either rook takes c3 or maybe queen e6. So he does this move, queen f5, he captures, check, he can't capture, he has to move the king. Queen takes queen, rook takes queen, and after c2 we promote. Yes, so only after you are sure that in all this line you win, you make the moves on the board. Okay, fine. Let me close it because I have one more example about how to solve the puzzles properly. So your task is to take a book, or you if you want, you can use Chess.com, but make sure that you choose a certain tactical motive to practice. Like, for example, this is intermediate move. You can also take the most popular, which are maybe distraction, pinning, attraction, and something else. So all most popular tactical motifs should be learned by you, and after that, only after that, you can add more tactical motifs and look for combinations with several tactical motifs inside. Okay, so okay, I'm going to answer the question. First of all, bishop d4, queen d2, rook e4, and f3. No, this move doesn't work. This is a check and the queen is lost. How many variations would you expect a person to write for the rook e4 puzzle to solve it properly? Usually there are 3-4 different lines. How long to think? Okay, yeah, let me explain the procedure. First, you think for 5 minutes. If you don't solve, you skip and solve the other one. Later, you get back to this puzzle and solve it for 10 minutes more. If you can't, you can again skip it. And after you get back to this puzzle again, you should put the pieces on the board, on a physical board, but don't move them. So this is the procedure. If the puzzles are quite difficult and you spend more than 5 minutes in average for the puzzle, take more simple. Yeah, actually, this is an example for maybe 1700 players. So, yes, and the next example is also difficult. I'll show you. Well, I'll choose something more simple. Yeah, actually, I can't say that this one is simpler, but let's do it. So it's black to move. Here, your task is to find the combination of several tactical motifs. What do you think? What do you think black can do here to be able to gain the material? Okay, there is a question from Oliver. Have you heard of 10 steps method? No, maybe I know it, but I've never heard such a name of this method. The steps. No. You can provide me with the link or just explain here in the chat. Okay, guys, while Oliver is writing, could you please find the solution for this puzzle? You think it's knight d2? And what then? So knight d2, knight d2. Your task is to gain the material here. So yeah, here you should take the advantage of this pin. This is obvious. You already put the pressure, but it's not enough. So queen a5, bishop, queen b3, queen h5, 94, 95. Yeah, the move order is crucial here. Queen a5. Let's calculate more. Okay, guys, I'm just going to show you. So what ideas to keep in mind? So here you may notice that this knight is protecting on d2. So it can be annihilation of defense, where your task is to remove the defender. Can we remove the knight on f3? Not in one move, but we can try in two, for example, by playing g5. Because this is the tempo move, and if bishop moves, we can continue with g4. So bishop moves, we continue with g4. They, for example, play this move. And then we can capture their bishop and simply capture on f3 and gain a piece. If, for example, g5, bishop takes g5, then the answer is even more obvious. Knight d2, knight takes knight, bishop takes knight, check, king takes, and queen a5, check, and we gain the bishop. So g5, this is the main move here. Actually, 2 lines to calculate only. So g5, what ideas do we use? Attraction. We attracting the bishop to the square where it can be attacked. So queen a5 is a double attack. Double attack is another tactical motive that we use in this position. So what else? What the bishop can do? Bishop can move to e5, but it doesn't make sense. Just knight e5, d takes e5, and simply g4. If they play this move, we can play knight to c5 and then capture on f3. If he goes to g3, then g4, chasing this knight. And if they try to attack our knight, we can't go back, because if so, we are not attacking the d2 knight enough. So here we capture on g3 first, they take, we take, and we gain a piece. Okay, there is a good question. What if g5, then a3 is played? Good question, but I think in such a case you can even lose more. Knight d2, no, the queen is under attack. Knight d2, bishop d2, king takes d2, queen is lost. Fine. Okay, let me close it. Okay. So let's continue. What else do we need to... What else do we need to do, and what we can actually do ourselves without any help? Then number 5 is study simple endgames. Let me show what you can do. So first of all, you can pass some endgames courses. You can take the books devoted to the endgames and then do everything on the physical board. This is what actually I did. But there is, if you want to study complicated, well, actually it works with simple endgames. If you can do another exercise, you can... it's better to study in a group of 2. How? First of all, you set up the position, and then you and your partner play it with each other with rapid time control, probably 15 plus 10. So then you analyze this game, but after you analyze, then you're looking what you did wrong and why. What should be played instead. So that's the best way. This is how I practiced myself. Okay. So let me show you. Mhm. Okay, so everything is working, and there is a game that I wanted to analyze. The game played by Alexander Alekin versus Friedrich Semisch. So let's flip the board. So how to study this endgame? Before you open a book and look for the solution of the best plan that white can apply in this position, try to think it, try to find the winning plan yourself, and if you can play this position against someone, or you can play it against the computer. Okay, so how strong the partner should be? Approximately like you, or close to you, maybe stronger than you. Okay, so there is a good question about the ratio. What should be studied first? Tactics, endgame, strategy, and so on. It depends on your current level, and this is what can I say after looking at your games. For example, for beginners, I definitely recommend working on puzzles and improve their ability to calculate and their tactical vision. So for club players around 1400, it depends. Usually it's tactics, then middle games and openings. However, according to what I know, in Soviet chess school, uh, students started learning endgames first and then everything else. So for 1800 players, I recommend to learn some openings that you enjoy, and after that, you should analyze grandmasters games. This is actually what is shown in my course, actually for 2200 as well, but for 2200 players it's a little bit more difficult. So for 1800, so yeah, middle games, maybe end games as well, uh, tactics for every level, including grandmasters. For example, my friend Dmitry Bocharov very often, before he wants to take a part in any tournament, he studies tactics almost 24 hours a day. Okay. So yes, openings are important, but I think openings are important for players who are over 1400s. Over so for people under 1400, it's not so important. So okay, good question about the progress. So it looks like you improved, but you lost your rating by 100 points. Oh, it may happen. Why not? Probably you are not in the best condition, and keep working, and you'll get this rating back. For 800 rated players, tactics, puzzles. Okay, guys, so you have tons of questions for 1100 players. I still believe that it should be tactics, uh, tactics, middle game plans as well. Okay, so by the way, while you're looking at this position and trying to find the best plan that white can do, let me check something. Okay, so I'm waiting for your solution. So bishop b5 is a good idea, queen c4. How to put some endgame situation on chess.com. Okay. Okay, yes, I know. I can show you a little bit later. Okay, queen b5. So, okay. So first of all, there is a good question, and yeah, let me show you. So before we continue with this endgame, I want to show you something. So first of all, there was a question of how to set up a position on Lichess or chess.com. Yeah, you can do it, for example, on Lichess. There is a board editor. Then you set up the position. Let's say, no, okay, let's remove something. Let's remove the queens on the board. Actually, let's do, yeah, you can do this. So you see, I'm setting up the position. There is a queen on c3. So here the king is on g7, the queen is on e8. The pawns are only there. Let's remove these pieces. So, and it's white to move. Castling, nobody can castle. White to play, yes. Continue from here. Play with the computer. This is how you may do it. Then you choose which level. You can do the same thing on chess.com. There was a question about so what to study. I created 2 products for you, and if you want, you can buy them. So they are not actually quite expensive. What is the idea? So the idea is that you play 10 long games, try to do your best, then you send these games to me. I'll make the analysis, tell you about your strength and your weak sides, and then I send you a weekly plan of what to do during the period of 3 months. So this training program is for 3 months. This one is for 6 months, and it's only $39. And then you follow this training program, and if you have some problems with it, or you want to adjust it, or you want to show some games that you played and you think that after that this program should be adjusted, you can always send me an email and I'll answer. So if you are interested, you can get this training plan and purchase this option. So the link will be here. Now let's continue with this in game. So it's for all players below 2000. So that will be a personal training plan. That's I will create for every player based on their games. And of course, it will be unique, depending on what your strong sides are and what needs to be improved. However, maybe for people under 1200, most of the elements will be similar. But for players above, I think the plans will be quite different. Yeah, so opening principles is best to learn with a coach, of course. Or you can just attend my webinars, because maybe I'll cover I'll cover how to play, what principles to follow to play the opening properly. Yes, for beginners, which level are you? Yes, of course. If you play 10 games and then I can realize what you struggle with, I'll definitely create a training plan for you. And if you follow it, you are likely to progress, of course. Okay, so let's continue with this plan. For example, if it was Stockfish playing with white pieces, they would continue with b4. However, we are human players and we understand that playing b4 exposes our king, what means that the risk of being checked, what means black can deliver a perpetual check, is really much higher after we play b4. That's why we should create a second weakness. So, you know, Aaron Nimzovich created the principle of two weaknesses, which is not obligatory weakness. For example, on the queen side, we have the b pawn, what means that the enemy pieces, at least one piece, should be tied down to that pawn. For example, it can be the knight on c8. And now our task is to create the second weakness or object of the attack, or a certain square that we can occupy with our pieces and create some problems for our opponent. For example, it can be like a kingside attack. In this position, we don't have enough material to succeed in it, so it's unlikely. But we can create a weakness here or here. So one of these two pawns can be weak. First of all, we play queen d4. Why? We restrict this knight activity, and we are more than happy to trade the queens. In such a case, if we trade the queens, we can definitely promote the pawn with no doubts. This is an absolutely winning position. With the queens, there is a risk to be checked, but without queens, it's a winning position, and our king can move to the center. So queen d4, what they have to play? They have to activate the knight, probably. Queen e7, this is what happened in the game. Then bishop d3. So the idea of this move is to attack these two pawns. We can't capture them immediately, but we may undermine them with h4, h5. And this is exactly what happened. Queen c7, the pawn is hanging. Now, I just want you to understand that something like that didn't work. King escapes, and that's it. No more checks. While we are threatening with queen d7 to attack. Or maybe not with queen d7, but with queen e4. And then queen b7. Check. That's much better. So bishop d3, he played queen c7. g4. He can't capture. If he captures, he loses the knight. Our g4 move prevents black's potential activity with h5. So king f7 was played. h4. Knight b6, he improves his pieces. h5. Now we put the pressure. We want to capture and play queen e4, threaten it to take and check the king, maybe to even gain the queen, if only we can locate our queen on the 7th rank. So black replied with g takes h5, g takes h5. And in this position, he had a choice. He actually played this move. Definitely not the best. Maybe he'd better play h6. What do you think we can do after h6? How to take the advantage of it? Yes, something like that. Either queen e4 or bishop g6 immediately. No, bishop g6 is best. King g7, then bishop escapes with the idea to get the queen there. Queen g6, queen g1, king f7, bishop g6 again. So he can't play this move because of bishop e4. He has to go to e6, for example. And then we can check him and capture the h6 pawn. Queen f3 doesn't really work because after queen f8, we just advance the h pawn. There is no perpetual check because if he tries it, let's say like that, we can go there. He do this. We can go queen a3 and block. And if he does this, then just queen b3 and we trade pieces. We trade queens and then promote. So this is what could happen in case if black played h6. But black played queen c6. And now, of course, queen e4 with the idea to trade the queens is one of the possible moves. We can also capture on h7, but here just make sure you don't blunder a perpetual check. So here, if, for example, you take here, after queen d1, you blunder a perpetual check. Like that. Well, even if, yeah, actually it's a perpetual check. You can't do anything. But Alexander Alekin played this move first. Queen moved to b5, and then h6. What is the idea of h6 move? No, a perpetual check is a kind of a check when your opponent keeps repeating the checks and you can't avoid it. Yeah, and this is how he can force a draw. Okay, the idea of h6 move is to keep the h7 pawn immobilized. So we fixed it and we are going to capture it. Or one of his pieces has to stay and protect this pawn. So he played queen b3, threatening with, no, actually, he's not threatening with much in this position. Maybe he wants to play knight c4 or something like that, but bishop c2. And if queen captures the pawn, he just loses on b6. If queen b5 in this position back, then after queen d3, we trade the queens. He has to trade, otherwise he loses on h7, and then we keep checking the king and then advance the pawn. So queen takes d3, bishop d3, and then they played with the knight, we capture it, and then we retreat and promote two pawns simultaneously. The h pawn, the b pawn. The b pawn can be promoted with the help of our king. I don't remember the year when this game was played. It was played in Baden-Baden, but of course not 2021. Yeah, actually, it doesn't really matter what. No, yeah, maybe it's this game. Let me check which year. Yes, exactly. It's 1925. However, then the game continued, but it's obvious that white is winning. Okay, so first of all, what to learn from this example? You should practice such endgames and play them with approximately equal opponent or against the computer. So b4 looks like a good move, but it's too risky because of the risk of a perpetual check. So first of all, we activate the queen, taking more space and preventing the king from preventing the knight from joining the game. He tries to improve it, and then we decide to create the second weakness on the other side of the board. Then we successfully use the principle of two weaknesses, fix that weakness, and finally trade the queens in the best position that we want here. Then white is winning. So I think, yes, you should play mainly long games. It should be maybe 3-4 long games per week. By saying long games, I mean 1 hour per game per side, maybe plus some increment. And you should definitely do the analysis of these games. And half of all the time that you devote to chess should be spent on tactics. So at my lessons, no, I work with different students. Some of them do puzzles themselves. Some only do them on our lessons. So usually from 1/3 to a half of all the time is devoted to puzzles. They are not learning. They are not only solving them, but they are learning the motives and trying to calculate lines properly. 30 minutes games are good. If you can't find a partner for 1 hour game, then yes, 30 games are good. Okay. As for sharing the games personally with me, you can, yeah, actually, if you want to participate, you can buy a training program and send the games to me, and then I'll create a training plan for you. How can we find this in games? For example, this one, just in a book, any book devoted to the end games. So yes, in this position you have to be accurate, because if black trades these two pawns for these two, it's gonna be a draw, because bishop plus the edge pawn won't succeed because of the color of the queen square. It's black while the bishop is light. Yes, finding long games seems to be a problem. That's why for my students I conduct tournaments. Okay, let me share. So this is our educational group, and let me find it where I announced. No, it's actually in my blog, probably. Yeah, so for example, this is where I announced the tournament. So you can look at the conditions, how to participate there. The time control is 45 minutes per game, per side, plus 30 seconds increment for each move. Oh, correspondence chess is good when you don't have time to play longer games. I mean, live chess, 30 minutes per side or 1 hour per side. I don't know anything about Silman's endgame course, but I can definitely say that my endgame course is good. So this is what I can definitely say is good, and this is where you may learn about the endgames. Actually, Dvoretsky books are good about endgames. No, I don't recommend you playing several games simultaneously. No, it doesn't allow you to improve. It can be done only with daily games or correspondence chess. Okay, yes, this webinar is recorded, and everyone who registered for the webinar after we finish, not after we finish, but on Monday, will receive a recording plus the book. I host tournaments maybe 3-4 times a year. No, actually, in my book, there are no puzzles. There is just an explanation of what you should do and how you should do it properly to be able to progress. Okay. Oh, actually, chess.com rating is similar to FIDE, while Lichess is overrated by maybe 300-400 points. Good puzzles. Okay, so actually, let me show you. Okay. So as for the puzzles, so page number 10. So the books I recommend. And actually, yeah, these are the books that I recommend. You can find it here. What else? Actually, also the book that is called 1200 combinations by Grandmaster Bloch. This book. This is the one that helped me, for example. And about the endgames, Chess Endgame Training by Rosen, Endgame Strategy by Sherishevsky. You'll find everything here. Okay, let's get back because we have some more material to study. First of all, what about your games? It's not recommended only to play games and do puzzles. You should also analyze your own games. And I'm going to show the example. Okay, let me close it. So the example of my game that I played against, doesn't really matter who, let's call it unknown player. And after we played this game, we shared our self-analysis. We didn't use any engine to do a self-analysis, and this is what I recommend. So I was playing with white pieces. It was Karakan defense, and I knew this line. We played several times. So the idea of knight d2, knight b3 here is to prevent c5. However, they can play c5 with b6. So knight e1. So for example, the engine thinks that this is not kind of inaccuracy, but actually this is a book move. Queen c7, knight d3, b6, bishop e3 to stop c5. All this is theory. Then they play f4, c5, they sacrifice the pawn. I take here as intermediate move. So currently black is a pawn down. But they are about to capture on e5, and I can't really do anything to stop, to prevent it. I play knight d4, attacking the bishop. Bishop comes to e4. Then c3 is supporting my position. And in this position, knight g captured on e5. That was a kind of a mistake that my opponent noticed after, and he said that instead it was better to capture with this knight. Yes, I agree, but this move also has some disadvantages. Why? Because then I can play knight f2, and there is no place for that bishop to hide, so I'm going to capture this bishop anyway and double the pawns, which is not actually so bad for black, and it's still a playable position. However, instead, this move was played. I played knight f2, bishop escaped, rook e1, potentially putting more pressure on e5, queen c5, and bishop b5. So the problem here is that these two knights have to protect each other. That's why it was much better to capture on e5 with the d knight, but keep the other one on g6. So that black only needed to protect one knight. So that was a strategic mistake that the computer is unlikely to find, but you may understand as a human player. Okay, let's do the next. So here, queen e2 was played to play bishop a6. a4 with the idea to support the bishop standing on b5, and maybe in the future I can initiate, I can convert my pawn majority into a passed pawn. So queen c5, bishop back, rook a7, prophylaxis. I play rook c1. The idea of this move is to play b3. So I don't want the pawn to be hanging. And b3 is needed to prevent knight c4. So here everything was good. Yeah, actually f6 is a mistake. This is another mistake that was mentioned by my opponent. This move weakens the e6 pawn much. And because of bishop f4, then king h7 and queen h3, I can put the pressure on the weakness. And maybe later I can also attack the h6. So that was a critical mistake. Instead of playing this move, it was better to play maybe king h7 right now, or queen f6. Yeah, king h7, for example, immediately. So b4, and that was my mistake. I think that at that moment I thought that it's okay to sacrifice the pawn on e4, but take the one on e6, because this is how I ruin black's pawn structure. However, I could just play rook a1, and I don't have to hurry. I can play b4 later. No, I did this. Knight e6. Rook comes to c4. Then I retreated with the knight, which was fine. So queen a7 is another mistake. Looks like a useless move. Instead, black could try this move to tie my queen to the protection of the c3 pawn, so that I can't use it into the attack. But this move wasn't played. Bishop e3. Bishop e3 is a kind of a weird move. Maybe I should play knight f5. But I actually didn't want the queen to... No, the pawn to be hanging. I wanted. Rook a2, knight f5. This move, knight f7 is another mistake. So in this position, just queen d7 was enough. This is the move that I consider it. Yeah, in that position, of course, the rook a3 could be played, but it weakens the first rank. Queen d7, this is what I consider it. Then I have to take queen takes h2, queen takes h3, knight takes h3, king takes g7, and if I take on b6, this move is played. No, here I have to play bishop d4, right? And after this move, I can play rook a1 to save my rooks. Rook takes rook, and then after knight b4, I think rook f1, and I'm slightly better. But actually, because I take on f6. But actually, after I realize this is gonna be a draw. Okay, let's go back. So so that was the mistake of not playing queen d7. Then bishop d4 to put more pressure, then everything is good. And here, the best move that I found only when the computer demonstrated. I played rook e4, which was looking as an attractive move for me, because then I can capture on f6. I didn't play knight f6 right now, but that was the best option, because rook g2 actually doesn't work. I can just play this move, and there is no good discovered attack with the rook. For example, if rook goes there, I can capture on e4 and avoid a check, but deliver a check to the enemy king, and then just capture on g3 with the knight maybe. So that's why rook g2 is not so strong actually. But I decided to capture e4 first and then took here. And then actually their position is losing. I played properly. So I'm down the exchange, but I gain a piece with this pin, e3. Maybe the best move, but it still loses. H takes g5, g takes h6, and then I can just move my rook to e1, and the position is winning because of two minor pieces and the weakness of the enemy king. The e2 pawn cannot be promoted. But here I checked first. No, this move isn't a good move. I don't remember what I found for this move. Just rook e1 can be played. Yeah, rook e1, and then knight f4 is the next move. But my opponent, sorry. Here, my opponent played king to h6, and after bishop g7, they have to sacrifice the queen. So, and king takes g7 cannot be played. I just play queen g5 and gain the rook for free. Maybe this is what they didn't notice. So that's why I have knight plus queen versus two rooks. It's absolutely winning position. So, and all this analysis I did on my own, myself, without any computer assistance. And this is what you should do. If you are actually if you're a beginner behind below 1200, it's even better because you can find more mistakes, and this is where you should learn. This is how you after you realize your mistakes, you can learn. Actually, you are learning when you are trying to find where you made a mistake. Yes, and it's okay to use the engine only after you analyze the position yourself. This is okay. Strong players can use the engine immediately. Of course, I prefer calculation. Yeah, so I like to calculate long lines, especially with tones of different variations. Okay, fine. So let me... Strong players, yes, 1800 plus. So let me close it. No, the last thing that I wanted to show you today So here, you see, improve your visualization. I have a special exercise, and you probably know if you visited my chess.com profile, you know this exercise. You can definitely try it, but another thing to improve the visualization and also to improve your memory is to remember the games. And you'd better start with short games. Just wait a sec. So let me close it. I'm trying to do it quickly. So I prepared the game between two Russian masters, Urusov and Hardin. It was Evans Gambit. B4. This is Evans Gambit. Bishop B4, C3. I actually recommend playing Evans Gambit to my students, but I recommend them playing D4 here. However, Urusov played castle. E6, D4, Bishop B6. The idea of this move is to avoid Queen A4, because after Queen A4, D5, and Black experienced problems with two pieces simultaneously. So that's why they played Bishop B6. So you explain move by move, and then you repeat this position at the empty board. A4 was played. The idea of A4 is to pressure with A4, A5 in future, as well as to get the queen to A2 in some variations. Knight F6, Bishop B5, A6, we capture, then we pressure with A5, Bishop A7, Queen A4, threatening on C6. So they castle. We can take on C6 right now, but it's better to capture on E5 first, and then taking on C6 should be good. But White decided to capture it on E5. And after Queen E8, the pawn is protected. If Knight takes C6, just Bishop D7. However, in the game, it was played Queen C6, and after Queen E5, White resigned. Why? No, the answer is obvious, because White lost a piece, and if White wants to capture the rook, he can be checkmated with Knight G4. Knight G4, G3, Knight takes H2, then, for example, King H2, Queen H5, check. If King goes there, it's Bishop H3. If King goes there, it's Queen F3, and actually Bishop H3 on the next move, which creates a mating net. Knight D2 doesn't work as well, because just Queen takes G3, the F pawn is pinned. And then Bishop H3, with the idea of playing this or this, and to G2, checkmate. The queen is hanging as well. So this is how you may learn this game, by explaining every move. Now I'm closing it. And just choose the empty board. And try to repeat everything here. So E4, E5, Knight F3, Knight C6, Bishop C4, Bishop C5, B4. It was Evans Gambit, C3, so Bishop A5. Here, D4 is probably the best option, but White castled. D6, D4. In this position, we are threatening with Queen A4, so this move was played. What was then? Who remembers? A4, exactly. A4. Knight f6 was played. Bishop b5. a6. Bishop takes c6. B takes c6. a5, pressuring the bishop. The bishop escapes. Queen a4. They castled. D takes e5. D takes e5. Knight takes e5. Queen e8. And after queen c6, queen e5, white resigned. So you see, it's not actually difficult to learn this game. It's a short game. You may also learn this variation, knight g4, g3, knight h2. And you can, for example, stop at this moment because it's obvious that black is winning because of the strong attack. Yeah, so what do I recommend? Just take short games, try to analyze them, and then just repeat them. This is how you improve your memory, and later it will be easier for you to learn the openings. And, of course, it improves your ability to visualize the positions. Okay, guys, time to finish. Do you have any questions? What about the blitz part? So I don't recommend playing blitz because you don't have enough time to think. How should I build an opening repertoire? Actually, okay. You'd better ask your coach about it. So I have here on my website. So there is a blog, and for example, there is a article devoted to how to choose an opening repertoire. It depends on which positions you like and what you already know. So I'm going to share the link here. $40 minutes for what? So what to do to improve your tactical vision? You should solve tactical puzzles, but not one by one. You should solve puzzles devoted to a certain tactical motif. Then one motif, then the other one, and then you'll be able to recognize them during the game or in the puzzles where the motif isn't mentioned. So, guys, about okay, let me close it. About any questions about personal coaching, you can message me at tricksofchess@gmail.com. tricksofchess@gmail.com. No, I'm not familiar with Peshka. Yes, so do your best when you solve tactics, solve tons of them, and then you'll realize that you can recognize tactics during the game, even if nobody tells you that there is a tactics. And how to find if there is tactics in such a position? Usually, you should notice that the position is sharp and every move can cost a game. Okay, so thanks everyone, and please come to my next webinar that will be next Sunday, same time.